Thor represents the best of both worlds. No, I'm not referring to Asgard and Midgard. I'm trying to make the point that Thor is both the funniest Avenger and the one who suffered the most. I mean, he's proven to be a comedic goldmine in Thor Ragnarok and Endgame, but also along the way lost his hammer, his best friend, his parents, his people, his brother, his eye, and for a short time, his metabolism. Thor is incredibly complex, and today we're going to dig into the minute details and the inner psychological workings of his mind and wait, what's that? Oh, we're not doing that? We're ranking Thor's most powerful weapons he's ever had instead? Oh, thank the All-Father for that, because I want to talk about things that smash other things into bits. What's Thor's strongest weapon? What's his weakest? Let's get started right now.
Oh my god, the hammer pulled you off.
The ground. It would pull me off the ground up into the air and I would fly.
Before we get into the individual weapons with just fantastic sounding names, I thought we'd clear the deck and start off with the weakest / less impressive weapons and start working our way up to the most powerful. So taking the bottom spot on this list is the cluster of weapons Thor used to fight on Sakaar while facing his friend from work, the Incredible Hulk. Although all of them had an awesome sort of retro design to them, it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Or in this case, bringing a knife to a Hulk fight. The first set of weapons we see Thor try to use against the Hulk is a mace and shield that belonged to the gladiator before him, the Fearsome Doug. Okay, Fearsome Doug wasn't his nickname, but I wanted to spruce up his title a bit. It was just Doug? Come on. Of course some alien named Doug was going to lose to the Incredible Hulk. I mean, that's just a losing battle right there. It's just not threatening enough. Oh, what's this? I've just been handed a note from the Council of CBR Gods that I need to read. The personal attitudes of this VO regarding people named Doug does not reflect CBR's views of people named Doug, and CBR can't be held responsible for any Doug-related outrage. Okay, I get it. Anyway, back to the fight. The mace and shield last for about 3 seconds as one hit from Hulk breaks the weapons right away. Man, I can see how Doug lost now. And honestly, I think this was a missed opportunity. Sure, the mace wasn't very cool, but seeing Thor with a shield was a great opportunity to make some Captain America jokes. Wouldn't you expect Thor Ragnarok to have a sequence where Thor tries to copy Steve Rogers' style with the shield by throwing it and expecting it to come back to him? That sort of gag would have worked perfectly there. But no time for that because we're on to the retractable swords. I mean, the name is pretty self-explanatory, right? They're swords that retract that Thor pulls out, ready to defend against the rampaging rage monster. These hold out a little better than the mace and shield and actually defend against a few attacks before they bend and are knocked away. Obviously, these aren't vibranium swords, though someone should invest in those. Then Thor decides to fight fire with fire a little bit and use one of Hulk's own warhammers against him. This is much more effective than his previous weapons as he's able to send Hulk flying across the stadium with one hit. Then Thor tries the tried and true method of beating the Hulk up with the warhammer until Banner reappears. But you know the thing about the Hulk? He gets stronger the angrier he gets, so Thor bashing him relentlessly with the warhammer only increases the rage and soon makes the warhammer ineffective. Overall, I'd grade his set of Sakaar weapons a C-. They looked flashy, but besides the warhammer, didn't do anything useful. Thankfully, the others on this list can do some serious damage. Now it's time to get a little comic booky. The next weapon I want to talk about is Jarnbjorn. Like, we know Mjolnir and Thor are the signature duo, but have you ever considered what Thor used as a weapon before his famous hammer? Well, it was an axe by the name of Jarnbjorn, aka the Wrecker of Worlds. Now, this bad boy has a fascinating history. It was originally created by the dwarves for Runa, who was an original member of the Valkyrie before she was assimilated by the Headless Celestial. Where's that backstory, am I right? Like, all I'm saying is that the OG Valkyries would make a fascinating Disney Plus TV show, right? I mean, if Agatha Harkness can get a spin-off show, then so can the Valkyries. Anyway, in the comics, Thor was getting tired of not being able to lift Mjolnir, so he switched over to Jarnbjorn instead, and they had a series of fun adventures together. Like, one time, he blessed the axe with his own blood, which allowed it to pierce celestial armor. Another time, Thor lost Jarnbjorn, but eventually Kang the Conqueror recovered it from Baron Mordo's tomb. Man, is it possible to get all three of these characters to meet somehow? But overall, this axe basically acts as Thor's rebound. Whenever he goes through a period where he is no longer worthy of Mjolnir, he just shifts to Jarnbjorn. That sort of puts the axe lower on this list for that reason. But now I'm just wondering if there's a way to work Jarnbjorn into the MCU in some capacity. Like, yeah, Thor has a Stormbreaker now, but that's such an OP weapon. Is he going to carry that around forever? No, he needs a good medium-sized weapon to occupy his time for a while, and Jarnbjorn is just the axe for the job. Sure, axes and hammers are fit for warriors, but you know what really makes you stand out? A staff. And not just any staff either, a kingly one. Like Gandalf had one, Jafar from Aladdin had one, Maleficent had one. If you want it to look cool and menacing, just get a cool staff. That's where Gungnir comes in. Gungnir was an Uru-made spear/staff hybrid that acted as a symbol of Asgardian kingship. Let he who wields the staff be the king of Asgard, or something along those lines. We know it's been passed down a few generations, as we saw Odin's father, King Bor, wield it, then we saw Odin swing that thing around a few times, and then finally, Thor gained possession of it during Thor Ragnarok. The god of thunder then used it at the beginning of his final fight with Hela, which I would say is a bold strategy. I mean, have we seen Thor really fight with a staff before? No. And there Thor went, ready to fight the strongest baddie he's ever faced before with a weapon that we don't even know if he's proficient in. But at least he held his own for a bit. Sure, he eventually dropped it and didn't bother to pick it up again, so that means more than likely the staff was destroyed when Asgard turned to space dust. Either that or it's just floating in space somewhere, waiting for the next lucky person to stumble across it. Overall, it's a cool artifact for both its fighting prowess as well as its kingly significance. I wish all our world leaders had big, kingly staffs with them everywhere they went. Wouldn't that make the world a much better place? I think so. I would never forgive myself if I made a list of the strongest Thor weapons and didn't include Frog-Mjolnir. Yes, that's right, it just rolls off the tongue. Frog-Mjolnir. And it belongs to Throg, the Frog of Thunder, naturally. Here's how it played out. Thor was once turned into a frog by Loki. Thor aided another frog named Puddle Gulp, and eventually Puddle Gulp saw Thor use Mjolnir, and thanks to a horse named Tooth Gnasher, a small sliver of the hammer broke off. Puddle Gulp saw this, took it, and then was transformed into Throg. Now he's the frog version of Thor. Yes, there are so many questions, and it's so delightfully weird that I couldn't not mention it. Throg even has a small cameo in the Loki TV show, so I thought I'd give some credit here. Now though, it just has me thinking, what would happen if we melt down Mjolnir into parts? Would each part be just as powerful no matter what? That's cool. We know that there are a bunch of different universes out there now, which begs the question, which major universe are we going to see and spend time in first? A big option is the Ultimate Universe, which sees some big differences for some of our favorite heroes. One of those is the Thor character, who in the Ultimate Universe was a seemingly regular human named Thorleif Gullman, who after his 30th birthday started hallucinating visions of Asgard. Turns out he was having repressed memories and he was actually Thor. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Anyways, the ultimate version of Mjolnir has a lot of similarities to the one in Earth 616, but also a lot of key differences. Like, did you know it possesses 4D teleportation? So yeah, the regular Mjolnir has access to the magic of the Bifrost, but the ultimate Mjolnir can transport objects and such to different locations. And although the OG is a magical weapon that only the worthy can lift, the ultimate Mjolnir doesn't have those enchantments since it was made by humans. So all in all, it's a pretty cool weapon, and I'm glad there's Mjolnir representation in different universes than just our own. And as an added benefit, a later upgrade to Ultimate Mjolnir saw Odin create a magical one, so that's pretty cool. Although this might be a little controversial, I stand by putting Mjolnir as third on this list. Yes, it's what we're always going to associate with Thor no matter what, and try as the franchise might to get us excited for the Thor and Jane reunion in Thor Love and Thunder, but we all know the real reunion we're most excited for is the possibility of Thor being reunited permanently with Mjolnir. Thor and Mjolnir go together like peanut butter and jelly, like Jimmy Woo and Close-Up Magic, like Sam Wilson's sister and Bucky Barnes. It's just a match made in heaven, right? Forget all the great love stories that the MCU has given us over the years. The real heart of the franchise is Thor's relationship with Mjolnir.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Okay, maybe that's getting a little too carried away, but on the other hand, just think about it for a second. Pre-Thor Ragnarok, Thor felt like he was defined by his hammer and could only be a powerful warrior with that by his side. And after it was destroyed, he thought he was less of a person. It wasn't until after Ghost Odin gave him a pep talk telling him the secret of his strength came from within him that really helped him. Then Endgame brought Thor to tears when he realized he was still worthy for Mjolnir after all this time, and now he's on his own path. That's the equivalent of somebody who was in a relationship their whole life and becoming dependent on that person, and then taking a bit of time to grow on their own a bit, before finally being ready to accept that other person back into their life. Wow, that's a really really long way to explain how important Thor's journey back to Mjolnir is. Enough about all that. Let's talk about the smashy stuff for the hammer. Mjolnir is incredibly powerful, as it not only packs one heck of a punch, but it also helped channel Thor's lightning, could help him seem like he could fly, and provided a convenient way to trap enemies who weren't worthy enough to wield it. I mean, seriously, is there a better use of a super weapon than pinning enemies down in some capacity? In the first Thor, the God of Thunder trapped Loki by pinning him with the hammer. In the Avengers, Thor made Hulk really mad by throwing the hammer and making it so Hulk got confused on how he couldn't lift it. In Age of Ultron, Thor not only stopped the nearly unstoppable Quicksilver by making him grab the hammer in midair, but also provided a fun party game for all his Avenger friends as they all took turns trying to lift the hammer. So overall, it's an incredibly powerful weapon that could defeat anyone who's not worthy. The whole worthy element does really set it apart from other weapons in terms of defeating bad guys, but I would argue it's also a fundamental flaw of the weapon itself, because it forces us to question just what counts as being worthy to wield it, as well as ask the question of why doesn't Thor just pin his enemies like he did with Loki immediately? And then future Thor movies would only be about 35 minutes each, and who would want that? As powerful as Mjolnir is, there's one actual weapon that's above it. Of course, it's Stormbreaker, the weapon specifically designed to defeat Thanos. Now, both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker were made in the same place. It actually comes from dwarves, and both were forged with Uru metal. Uru is one of the strongest metals in the universe, and it's right up there in terms of indestructibility with the likes of adamantium and vibranium. And if we continue to compare Stormbreaker with Mjolnir, then I think you'll find a lot of similarities. But with Stormbreaker having a bit of an edge, like literally, it has a sharp edge because it's an axe, while Mjolnir is a blunt instrument. Let me put it this way, it was incredibly easy to cut off Thanos' head with Stormbreaker, but that is something that would take a lot more force and skill if Mjolnir was used for the same purpose. Plus, in the MCU, I would say that Stormbreaker has a bit of an added benefit in that its handle is made from Groot's arm. And side note, did anyone else have a problem with this scene? Like, they go through all this work to make Stormbreaker and emphasize how important it is to get the timing right, but then when it's all ready for the handle, the group realizes they don't have one nearby? Come on, guys, the fate of the universe is at stake here. Luckily, Groot is around to provide a sturdy handle for the brand new battle axe, and the rest is history. It has a lot of the same properties as Mjolnir, like being able to utilize the Bifrost, but it looks like it could increase Thor's lightning a significant amount. Now, that's the Stormbreaker we saw in the MCU, but what about the Stormbreaker from the comics? Originally, Stormbreaker was made for Beta Ray Bill, a Corbinite who was teased slightly in Thor Ragnarok, but remains high on the list of best Marvel characters who haven't appeared in the MCU yet. In the comics, Stormbreaker has the same let he who be worthy charm as Mjolnir, as well as some additional powers, like allowing Beta Ray Bill to transform into a human and creating portals to other areas. All in all, it's quite a powerful weapon. But will Beta Ray Bill show up to claim it in an upcoming Thor movie? I hope so. Thor's most powerful weapon, though, isn't Mjolnir or Stormbreaker, and it's technically not even something that Thor can wield. Yes, that's right, for the number one spot on this list, I'm ranking the Destroyer armor as Thor's best weapon. And I know what you're saying, but disembodied CBR voice, we've never seen Thor use that as a weapon, and to that I say, fair point, but it's the potential of the Destroyer armor that's so exciting and could lead to big things for the MCU and Thor. What can I say? I'm an optimist. We saw the Destroyer in the MCU in the first Thor movie when Loki took control of Asgard and therefore took control of the Destroyer armor and sent it to destroy Thor. It proved to be insanely powerful and had the capacity to level small towns with its awesome might. Thor tried to sacrifice himself to save the town, but that only led to him being deemed as worthy enough to wield Mjolnir and transform back to his Asgardian god self. He was able to defeat the Destroyer by turning the energy in on itself. But for now, the actual location of the Destroyer armor is unknown. It's been said that the original idea was for it to return in Thor Ragnarok during Hela's attack on Asgard, only for it to be destroyed by Hela. The fact that they ultimately decided to not include this scene could point to big things. On one hand, it could just be that the pacing didn't quite work and we didn't need to see another scene of how powerful Hela was, but on the other hand, maybe they cut this scene in order to keep the Destroyer armor around for a later use? See? As I said, I'm an optimist. In the comics, the Destroyer armor was specifically made with a certain metal that was then enchanted by Odin thousands of years ago. It's supposed to be stronger than adamantium, uru, and vibranium, and it was designed specifically back in the day to fight Celestials. That's right, Celestials. Those all-powerful figures that are becoming more and more important to the MCU as we continue to expand into the cosmos. So just why is this important? Well, the way the Destroyer armor works is that basically the user can't wear the armor, but rather project their life force into it in order to bring it to life. So what if we get into a situation where there's a Celestial fight and Thor, who's definitely one of the strongest fighters in the universe, transfers his life force into the Destroyer armor to fight a Celestial? I didn't know that's what I wanted for Thor's character, but now it's all I can think about. So come on, MCU, bring the Destroyer armor back. It's probably just floating in space after Asgard's destruction, right? Right?